Good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling the Monday, September 22nd, 2025 Education Operations Committee meeting to order. Agenda item 2, I'm seeking a motion to approve the minutes of August 25th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, if we have anybody identified.
No, but you did receive the written public comment.
Yes, we did.
And that will be uploaded tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4, information will be presented related to a recommendation to enter into a contract for services to provide a direct primary care clinic option for the district. This topic was mentioned in an earlier board meeting, and the recommendation is now ready to be presented. And with that, I'll turn it over to the two people.
Good evening. We are here to share where we are landing in terms of our recommendation for direct primary care. As we talked about in prior meetings, can you, Dan? Thank you. We want to just touch on a reminder again about how our health plan has been performing, review briefly what a DPC is, again, what the advantages are, what the savings are that we're projecting as a result of that, and what our final recommendation is from the insurance committee and all of the processing that we've done over the past year or so. John Preuss is here from M3, and he's going to cover some of those pieces, and I will hit some of the others. So if you can go to the next slide, thank you. As you know, our loss ratio for our health insurance plan has not been great. We landed at the end of the last plan year at a loss ratio of 116%, and that was significantly better than where we were earlier in the year when we were as much as 128% maybe at times. A number of reasons that are impacting that. We've got increased utilization. We've got rising prices. Our stop loss increases were pretty sizable, and we talked about that earlier at an earlier board meeting as well. And we've had a lot of high-cost claims in more recent years. We did make a move to UMR as of July 1st. They have some other things that help with cost containment that we haven't quite yet seen results from, but it's been a whole 2 months since we've made that switch, 2.5. So we do believe that we are going to be seeing some of that. And then ultimately, one of the strategies that the insurance committee has been processing is what does a direct primary care look like? And so we went through a formal RFP process during the past year or so to figure out what that might look like. Cassie, thanks. Direct primary care, as we mentioned, really is where we would have a clinic that would be near our sites. It would be a clinic right here in the Wausau area. They contract directly with employers, and some of the cost savings happens because we have a fee to provide the clinic, but it's not a service-based fee. So unlike when you go to a regular healthcare facility and you're billed for each and every item, we pay a fee per employee per month to provide this clinic for us, regardless of how many visits happen, regardless of the services, other than if we have lab or specific types of services that they provide, we'd pay the cost of those. So the savings are significant if utilized at the fullest extent. Our goal is to continue to provide healthy options that are easily accessible by staff and drive down our costs at the same time while still providing a very high level of care to both our employees and our families that carry our health insurance, because this would apply to those people that are carrying our health insurance as an alternative option.
So why direct primary care? I think Tabitha explained some of that pretty well. I'll just briefly add to it that good primary care is slow care. So spending time with the patient, spending time with the employee and their family is something that we looked for, trying to have a primary care, or direct primary care contract with an entity that would do that. Because if they slow down the care, that sometimes means, we like to use a sprained ankle as an example. Someone sprains an ankle, a lot of times you get referred to a specialist, and you get recommended for care that maybe always isn't as necessary. By slowing down the care and saying, you know, we'll get x-rays, but we'll have you come back in 2 days, 3 days, take a look at it again. You sometimes can avoid unnecessary referrals to specialists, and you can also treat the patient by getting to know them better, spending more time. Taking control of plan performance is a big part of it, and assisting employees with healthcare navigation. On the slide, we have some statistics. I won't go over each and every one of them. The one I would like to cover is that you can see the average cost per employee per year in the public sector is getting kind of high. It's $23,700. Now, granted, yours is $22,044, but for how hard you've worked at it over the years and already being self-funded, it's creeping up. And I think it's time to try and do things that are innovative. 20 to 30% direct primary care, or some people call these near-site clinics. You know, what you're doing is a direct primary care contract, is what you can expect over the long term, which is pretty good. It's a really good dent in your overall healthcare costs. That's
John,
all I
just
have on
one-
this slide. Yes.
One question. So the $7,000, and I'm just curious what the M3 data shows between the public versus private. What do you guys attribute that to?
So I don't think the number's entirely fair, because I do attribute it to, in part, many of them having direct primary care contracts. In part, many of them have higher deductibles, co-insurance, and co-payments. I do think in the public sector you have tenure, so people tend to stay at a school district for a longer portion of their career, which means the average age of a school district, for example, would be higher than the average age of a private sector. I'm not sure the number's entirely fair that way, because you're not really comparing apples to apples. But I do think that there's some evidence to point to a little more innovation, including direct primary care in the private sector.
No, thank you.
That number is also higher in the northern part of Wisconsin than, for instance, in the Madison or Milwaukee area, and some of that has to do with availability of providers. It's just a really different market up in this area compared to some of those more metropolitan areas. That does have some bearing.
And this next slide, the advantages of direct primary care, I mentioned some of them. Often there's fewer referrals to specialists, 80 to 85% savings on lab services. Those are solid numbers. We are seeing that with our other clients. 50% fewer emergency room visits, 30% fewer hospital days, unlimited and fast access to the primary care team. And I do think it's going to be really nice to be able to provide a wellness program that works in conjunction with this clinic, as well as provide services related to workers' compensation injuries. So you'll get a lot of crossover benefits from the direct primary care clinic idea. Comparison of direct primary care pricing. You know, what this is showing is what Tabitha mentioned before. Instead of charging per service, they charge a subscription per member per month, which means that fixed fee can result in one patient going in 7 times, 11 times, 3 times. It's still the same amount for that patient per member per month. Whereas if you're charged in a typical fee-for-service arrangement like you are now, you can see how that adds up. So this will help sort of bend the trend.
So this slide covers the timeline of what we did with the RFP process and the insurance committee. And the insurance committee has representatives from all of our different employee groups on it. We meet typically monthly during the school year. We started with an RFP going out to, I believe it was 6 or 7 providers. They're listed there. That went out early in 2024. There was some initial screening interviews done with all of those vendors that met the criteria we were looking for. They were narrowed down to 2 as our finalists, and we did interview those finalists towards the end of last school year. And following that process, we did some further follow-up. There were some questions generated that the committee members didn't feel that they had full answers for. So John and his team did some follow-up on that. to get the answers for that information. We also did some reference checks of some other places that the vendors have provided that service for. And ultimately, at this point, we have decided to recommend Inovia for our provider of choice for the DPC. In looking at that information, John and his team did an analysis with some of their financial folks, and they would estimate probably about $2,000 of savings in the first year. I will say both DPCs estimate a much higher projection of savings in the first year. I think part of that is dependent on the utilization, but my guess is maybe we'll end up somewhere in the middle, but probably closer to M3's projections in year one while we're getting up and running. We do have a plan for some strong employee education. As part of that implementation process, our payroll department and benefits area are really looking at that piece. HR will also help support that and making sure that we get a lot of face-to-face, but also some email and other Q&A kinds of responses. It is a good long-term solution, and there are a lot of employers around our area that have used that process. And so Green Heck is one of them, Colby and Colby, Crystal Finishing, and from a school district standpoint, Stevens Point Area School District just to our south also has a DPC, and they also are using Inovia just as information. Their reference check was very, very positive about the experiences that they've had, and their data from their first year of implementation, which they've just hit, is also very, very strong. So this is just a quick summary of kind of where Inovia has clinics. You can kind of just see visually they are growing. They do have a physician that practices at each location. As a tidbit and aside, the physician that would be practicing at our Wausau clinic is a Wausau West grad and went through our entire school system. He talks very fondly of his experiences here. He also happens to be a native Hmong speaker, so I do think that that is a great access point for a number of our staff members and families that may want or need that additional level of support. The subscription fee that is in their contract is $29 per member per month. And they do offer some options for that month-to-month kind of contracting. So we'll be working with them closely. Staff are able to access any of their locations, though. So if I live in Stevens Point, as an example, I could go to one of their clinics in Stevens Point. I don't have to only access the Wausau clinic. And so any one of those dots that are on that map are accessible and available to our staff members if they're in those areas. So the recommendation that we are bringing forward from that insurance committee process is that effective January 1st, 2020, oh, that's a typo, it's supposed to be 2026, implement Inovia as direct primary care clinic available to employees covered by the district health plan and their families. And John and I are here to answer any other questions you may
Any
have.
questions, board members?
Yeah, I just got a couple of them, just a
Few
Go ahead.
miscellaneous ones. First, what are the hours that the clinic is going to be open?
So they said that they would agree to work on whatever hours are most convenient for the district. Typically 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sometimes they'll alternate. They'll do a Tuesday from 6 a.m. to whatever time, and then start later on, say Thursday and Friday. But the hours can be negotiated. Generally, you're looking at an 8-hour day that they would be looking
Okay,
to
and
provide care.
The reason I ask, obviously, is right? ER and urgent care don't happen from 8 to 4.
Right.
And that's where the biggest savings is. So if we're not open during those times,
They do offer 24-hour care. So in other words, even though their hours for the actual direct primary care are set in working with you, they do have a 24-hour access line, and that access line provides care immediately.
So it's like telephonic?
It's like telephonic, yes.
Okay.
That's an added way to do it. And then through the telephonic, you can schedule, the next morning, depending on the situation, make a recommendation to go in right away to a hospital, but they'll navigate, help navigate with the 24-hour line.
Okay. Well, I would strongly encourage the hours to be somewhere 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. or noon to 8 when people get off of work, because they're going to be taking in their kids or themselves to a walk-in or an ER.
Makes sense.
I expect we'll do a blend of both, just because we have staff that are on first and second shift, and being able to access if a kid wakes up crying with an ear infection, it's kind of nice for them to be able to take them in early too. But Pat, your comments are spot on with what the committee had talked about.
Okay. And what is the break-even volume for the ROI? Like how many people do you got to put through the door in order to make that $29 even out and then become to the district's advantage?
It's a great question. The science behind it was challenging because it's difficult to determine how much you're saving as a result of services not happening. I think for your district, you have to get somewhere between an average of 3 visits per member on the plan. And usually you don't get that in the first year, but in Stevens Point, they did achieve that. They had 800 visits in the first year. So they were highly successful in doing it. I don't know that we'll have the same level of success, but I think we might if we advertise it.
Well, because, I mean, the real ROI is going to be the all-in spend, right?
Yeah.
On a monthly basis, so you should be able to compare this January versus last January or whatever seasonality factor you want to use. I'd be interested, I don't know, the rest of the board would want to see that maybe on a quarterly basis to see what type of savings it's actually generating.
We did request reporting samples and can bring them because that's important.
Yeah.
We want to meet with them.
Okay. All right. And my only other question was, what are the other local companies like Green Heck and Colby? Who are they using?
So Green Heck is using one from out of town that used to be connected with Quad Graphics. So I think it's called Quad Med. And then if you look at Colby and Colby, they're working with Link. And Link was one of the groups that was interviewed by the team that selected. If you look at some of the other locals, if you look at, say, Mullins Cheese, G3 Industries, a few other school districts in addition to Stevens Point, they are working with Innovia. Yeah, there is getting to be a very interesting scenario in central Wisconsin where there's these direct primary care clinics that are competing with one another. And only a few years ago, there wasn't even one of them.
Right.
So it is a good situation. But Innovia is turning out to win some of the school districts, and we like that because we do think it's unique. It's a little bit of a different market.
Well, and then it's a double-edged sword because if you can get more companies to use the same provider locally, right, you're going to offer that scale and expand the hours naturally.
Right.
But, if they got 3 companies versus 1, they can afford to have somebody there longer. But then you lose some of the competitive pricing.
You do.
So, yeah. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Other questions, board members? Sarah?
2 kind of logistics-based questions. The first regarding staffing. What does the staffing at the clinic look like? I'm assuming there's a PA or a nurse practitioner just to be able to cover those 40-plus hours a week plus the telemedicine.
So it's an interesting question because we did look at that. And we actually got the same question from the insurance committee and provided the list of actual names and titles of each of the individuals that will be practicing for the Wausau location. Staffing is led by the physician that graduated from West, so Dr. Tao, and the great thing about that is all of their clinics have the lead be a physician. So they're board certified in primary care. They're not, it's not a situation where you have a PA leading the team or a nurse practitioner. Following up the physician is a PA or nurse practitioner, so you do have that second level. And then sometimes there's 2 or 3, depending on the utilization that you get. And then behind them is a nursing staff and reception. So it will be a fully staffed clinic. I do think that the ratio for Novia was a little bit higher than some of the other ones that we looked at in terms of their staff.
Thank you. And then the second question is, you said this would be a location somewhere near us. I'm wondering if that location has been identified and what kind of startup costs we'd be looking at to create that location.
So they already have a clinic in Weston that can be utilized, but in addition to that, they're putting a clinic either in next to Applebee's at the Dorsey building. I don't know the exact address off the top of my head, but I do have it in my notes. And then the second one that they're looking at as a location is the old VA clinic. They haven't decided on one of those 2 locations, but both of them are equally accessible in terms of employees' locations.
Thank you.
And we are not being charged any of the startup costs for getting the clinic up and running.
Thank you.
Other questions? I'll just make a comment about what I've been hearing from around the state in school board meetings and things of that fashion, that seems to be where people are going in education. I knew that the businesses around here have been doing this, and there's a lot of local small clinics that are coming in to take the cost of health care down. So if this can take the health care cost down for our employees, great.
It's one piece of the puzzle, for sure.
Exactly. I'm seeking a motion to move to recommend to the full board the approval to enter into a contract for direct primary care clinic with Inovia. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Abstention. One abstention.
Thank you so much.
I shouldn't jump too quickly. I should give you that chance to abstain here. All right, agenda item number 5, CTE Coordinator John Winter will give a brief update on the district ACP plan. I didn't want to put a time limit on you, John. I almost did that, but I caught myself. Take as long as you want. We want to hear a lot about ACP.
But you did predict 15 minutes, just so you know. That's what it says on the little thing there.
But we weren't going to bring that up. Caught myself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Winter. Is this on?
Yeah, go ahead. Hit it and it'll go green.
Thank you. I'm John Winter. I'm the Career and Technical Education Coordinator, and I am presenting the academic career plan for the 25-26 school year. I want to give a little explanation and background just on tonight. If you recall, I was here last April talking about the very same thing, and what we're seeking tonight is approval of the 25-26 plan. Full transparency, it's the same plan. We're just trying to adjust the timeline of the approval process. It just makes more sense to have an approved plan at the beginning of the school year in the early fall, September, October-ish timeline, so that we can focus on the work of the ACP plan. So the plan itself was in the board packet, and what I would like to do tonight is just kind of give you an overview of what are some of the academic career plan things that we are doing right out of the gates this year. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. You've seen this graphic before. This is kind of the structure of ACP. It's the know, explore, plan, and go. And this is all part of the DPI direction that we have. It's a requirement of DPI to have an ACP plan approved every year by the school district. So moving forward, next September, hopefully you'll hear from me again. So this is kind of some of the things right out of the gates that we are doing around ACP. Last Thursday, we had several buses attend the Wisconsin Education Fair over at UWSP in Wausau. There were 70 colleges and military reps that were on hand to talk to some of our students, and these are our 11th and 12th graders that have an ACP plan, and they're putting them into action, and they're planning their post-secondary plans. So it was a great event for all of those students. This is something that happened in August. This was some professional development. We took an ACP team down to the Wisconsin Career Readiness Summit. And in this picture on the left is Dawn Jameson from WAVE, myself, Kay Picard, who is our Career Center coordinator over at Wausau West. Katie Oleg is a business technology teacher at John Muir, and Tyler Schultz, a business technology teacher over at Horseman. This Wednesday is a event that if you're not doing anything on Wednesday between 9 and 1, I would highly encourage you to stop by and check this event out. It's called Build My Future, and we are taking about 5 or 6 buses over there from Wausau East and Wausau West. There's going to be 21 schools and 1,400 students there exploring a variety of careers attached to building trades, the trades in general. Not just construction, but there's going to be a number of different career exploratory events, and there's a little video clip that Cassie will run here, just about 30 seconds to kind of give you a snapshot of the event.
Every single day, every single day, I'm on vacation every single day, 'cause I love my occupation. I'm on vacation. If you don't like your life, then you should go and change it. I'm on vacation every single day, 'cause I love my occupation. I'm on vacation every single day, every single day. Every single day, every single day. Every single day, every single day.
Thanks. So this is quickly becoming one of the favorite field trips that we are attending, and I want to give a shout out to the Wausau Area Builders Association for putting that on, and all of the vendors that are there. They do a great job of engaging our students. Our students are not there just listening to people talk to them and gathering brochures. They're literally jumping in and doing many of the different exhibits, and many of the business and industry folks do a fantastic job of setting that up in a safe environment that allow kids to get a real experience. So that's this Wednesday. Another event coming up, October 7th and 8th, is our heavy metal tour, and you probably have heard about that one. That's all of our 8th grade students attend 2 different manufacturing businesses in central Wisconsin, and they learn a lot about the different careers in manufacturing, not just machining and not just welding, but they go through the sales and marketing department, the IT department, the human resource department, and they're going to have lunch at a manufacturing place. And learn all things around the manufacturing industry. A couple announcements I wanted to share with you. 204 students last year earned industry credentials in the Wausau School District. And that's pretty significant because that's a new record for us, first of all. Students are earning certifications in Microsoft Office, certified nursing assistants. There's different technical diplomas in diesel technology. And when this program first started back in 2014, we had 61 students earn a certification, and last year we had 204. So we're pretty excited about that. We've been certifying kids for many years, but it's also a part of a program called the CT Incentive Grant, which allows us to generate revenue back into some of these programs through the state of Wisconsin and the Department of Workforce Development. So I just wanted to share that number with you because I think that that's a sign of growth and the really good work that a lot of our staff are doing to help kids get the credential when they leave. They're not just leaving with a diploma, but a credential that says they have a skill in a certain area that they chose. So we're continuing to grow that a little bit. The next one is students that are proficient in 2 languages. They can now be credentialed through the state of Wisconsin through a seal of biliteracy. So we've just been approved as a district to do that, so that's something new this year. And then the third thing is we have 2 new student organizations. we call them career and technical student organizations. So much like your DECAs or your FFAs, we have one now this year at both high schools for healthcare. So we have clubs competing in the healthcare industry. So we're looking forward to having HOSA chapters at both high schools. And then just continued work around ACP this year. So we're going to continue to build innovative pathways. Last April, I shared a number of different ones, whether it be aviation was one example. But this year, what we're working on is a pre-apprenticeship for electricians. And this is in partnership with Newton Electric and the union through the electricians. We're working on delivering online curriculum attached to youth apprenticeship, where students will be able to complete 1 year of their adult apprenticeship as an electrician by the time they graduate high school. So we're kind of piloting it this year with a student over at West, but what we'd like to do next year is deliver the curriculum through WAVE, attach a youth apprenticeship, and then work with our industry partners. So kind of an exciting thing that we're working on right now. Our CTE pathways, we're continuing to strengthen those. This year, we're working through a process called the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, where we're looking at data and looking at, different gaps and setting goals to strengthen our pathways in CTE. Excuse me, in CTE. Always continuing to improve family engagement through intentional communication. One thing new this year with Heavy Metal Tour is there's a lesson where students are tasked with going home and having conversation with family about careers and their experience with the Heavy Metal Tour. One more thing that we're doing, Wausau East Career, the counseling department and their ACP team over at Wausau East just had an activity in homeroom where students had to go home and interview their parents or family members about careers. So we're trying to increase that family engagement around ACP. Last one there is continued leveraging community partnerships, whether that be field trips, professional development, advisory teams. Our CTE department had a professional development day down at the Children's Imaginarium to kick off the year, just because that's an organization that has a lot of alignment with what we do in CTE. It's just that we don't always capture the younger age kids, but they're doing a ton of things through STEM, a lot of hands-on learning through that. So it was a great little partnership for us to kind of see the full picture. But that's our ACP team, and just to make a plug for our team, we're always looking to grow that and expand it and have people join us doing this work. But that's our district team right there. And I won't read through these, but these are our goals. They're in the ACP plan. So these are kind of the stated goals that we're focused on this year. And with that, we are seeking approval of the 25-26 ACP plan.
And before we go through that motion, questions from the board? Any comments? Go ahead.
Just a couple here. John, can you remind us, you said that the industry recognized credentials started in what year when there was 61?
2014 is when I think the program started on a state level. It originally started through DPI, and then a few years ago, DWD kind of took over facilitating it. So I came on board around 2014, and it was just rolling out. I might be off on 1 year there.
No,
but
that's
You're about right, John. You're about right. It was
so-
about 214.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out, so that's 11 years, and we picked up 143 kids in 11 years into that. I don't know. I was trying to weigh if that's good or not. I don't.
Yeah. I think it's we've expanded the menu of certifications too, and some of that too is in partnership with our technical college too, qualifying some of their technical diplomas. And there's a process too where industry can apply to be on the the qualified list of certifications, and that continues to grow too. So on a state level, the program has grown too.
And then what do you see as the barriers to putting that apprenticeship program into high gear? I know you said we have a student at West doing electrician.
Well, first,
How do we get plumbing involved? How do we get HVAC technicians? How do we get more companies? Like, why can't we just put it in high gear?
well, as the process has come on, it came to us from industry. They brought us the curriculum and said, here's the curriculum that we are running adult apprentices through. Is there any way that we could partner and you help us deliver that curriculum? And the answer was WAVE, really, is the kids, when they graduate, they're doing online curriculum already. So we're adopting that curriculum and delivering it online while they're seniors. So if there's opportunities out there, we're looking for solutions like that work. And this
So
one worked.
are we going on the offensive, or are we waiting for other industries to bring us the curriculum and saying, hey, can you do this plumbing thing? Like, how do we get out
Yeah.
there and, this is what we want to do. How can you help us do this?
Yeah, I think a little of both. I think that this one kind of fell in our lap. The example of aviation was one that was through a partnership, really, just having conversation with stakeholders, kind of learning what are their needs. And so
I just think, Cale, that, this is something that we should be, in my opinion, very intentional about. It shouldn't happen just by chance, right? When we start these, whether it's aviation, just kind of fell into our lap, an electrician, we had Newton Electric approach us, or whoever it is. And I say this every time we go through that, it feels like we're continuing to just nibble around the edges of some of this stuff. And I know back in previous administration, they talked about doing these different, I can't remember what exactly called, academies, that's what it was, to focus on specific educational paths for kids. And I don't know what the right answer is, but it just, when you read up on this stuff, there's other districts that just have an array of things out from the minute a kid becomes a freshman. There's a very clear path in terms of what they want to do. And when I talk to parents now, and I don't know if this is a career, falls into your area, John, or if it's more in the counseling sector, but I ask parents, because I think this is important, like, how do you see the academic and career planning go? And they look at me, and every one of them will say, what do you mean? And I say, well, they're trying to figure out what Jimmy wants to do when he, gets older, what he's qualified to do. And they're like, well, yeah, we talk to a counselor, and they tell us what classes they need to take to graduate. And it seems like we're missing something in that dialogue. Like, classes required to graduate is one part of it, but a whole career path to me it's a bit more complex.
Let me jump in and just ask the question. John, it used to be career cruising, at the software that everybody was using in education, stated by the DPI, and that goes back to about, I want to say, 2010. And then that was bought out by another company that we're now using. It's basically
Zello.
taking over career cruising. What is it?
Zello.
And that's the software that all the schools, high schools and districts, are starting to get to. The unfortunate thing is, when you ask the question, is when do we start it? We always pushed at about fifth grade to start getting kids looking at what would they like to do. Are we doing that here? Are we hitting them at about fifth grade, sixth grade with?
Yeah, we have a set curriculum, mostly delivered by our counselors at the elementary school. So in the plan, I've kind of got it outlined in the plan, what we do in the elementary, in the middle school, and the high school levels. So that's linked in there. But we started in the elementary school.
Correct.
To get just want to go back to Pat's thing too, is, so I think it looks different too in different industries, obviously, but I think there's a couple different pieces there. I think there's industry credentials for sure, but there's also dual credit opportunities too. So there's different the pathway might look a little different depending on, what sector we're looking at, or,
Sure.
or, whether it's an apprenticeship, or, how much continued education is required. So, yes, I think there's different resources out there. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you go out and look at that CTE incentive grant, that program through DWD, you can see all of the different certifications that are available on the state level, and they break out into all of the different areas. There's quite a few of them. So just as a resource
Okay.
for you.
But my only other question then is for your goals, how are you measuring success in those?
Well, so our ACP team would get together and review that. We haven't strategized exactly how we're going to gather all that data, whether we gather it through surveys with our parents or surveys with our staff and students. One of the things we're doing with our CLNA, our Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, is surveying students, staff, and family, and not family, stakeholders. So as a team, we need to strategize a little bit more as far as how do we measure some of those goals.
Yeah, like when it says expand partnerships to increase student career exposure to local career opportunities.
Yeah.
Right, the question is, how many do we have now? We want to double that by May of next year.
Right.
We want to, I think there are opportunities here to measure the success. We just got to be a bit more
Yep, I agree.
precise, so. Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Just, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment on, I think Pat's points are good in terms of trying to expand this as much as we can, but I do think there's a balance there that I think for 99.9% of people out there, asking them what they're going to do for their career and have them make that decision when they're 13 or 14 is crazy. And so I think the balance has to be making the opportunities available, not pushing kids towards something. The last thing I would want is my freshman to be, or my 8th grader or whatever, to take some online test. He always jokes with me about how he was told in 7th grade or 6th grade that it told him he was going to be a corn farmer.
Hey, I was told the same thing.
Yeah, well, you guys are getting along great. I don't know where that came
from the same place.
Yeah, but
Software glitch.
to have a test and then have a counselor start saying, this really shows that you should be a electrician or whatever. And then now we start taking those. Like, I really like the idea of just exposing kids to 100 things, and then by the time they're late in their high school career, maybe they're starting to fall into something that I really like. I did welding, I did this, I did healthcare, I did history, as opposed to starting to direct it as a freshman. But for those kids that know that's what they want, then any opportunities that we can have to speed them along, I think is great. If you've got somebody who's just zeroed in that they know this is what the path they want and you can get them going on it right away, I think that's great. I just don't want to push that as a district.
I think there's a balance on all of that. When you really know what they're doing with CTE and the ACP program, and you understand that we're trying to reach students to give them ideas, because so many times in the past, students would get to their senior year and thought, what are you going to do in school? I have no clue. I haven't been prepared. I don't know. So DPI, going back in a little bit of history, going back to about 2010, 12, thereabouts, we can take a look at these programs, and they really encourage school districts to come out and start talking about the 16 career clusters, the 72 pathways, how you can go from one career cluster to the next career cluster, how the courses really do meld. It also gives us an understanding of what classes we're going to carry, correct? And it gives us an understanding how many students we're going to have to get into those classes. The big thing that I keep on looking at is your youth apprenticeship. That's another, or shadowing, as some of us may have remembered. Those are all things that have taken place. What I'm going to say right now is I appreciate the fact you're coming and telling us this every year. I wouldn't mind having probably twice a year to find out how our students are doing, because if I'm not mistaken, Wausau West last year had a number of students that graduated with an associate degree. John, am I correct in that? They came out and they already had their associate degree because of dual credit, because of working with the collegiate level and NTC. So we're really doing great things. As I've been watching what you've been doing, John, for the last 6 years since I've been on the board, we have jumped leaps and bounds. You've taken us from where we were. We're getting there. And Matt, I sometimes say, sometimes it takes a while to get where we would like to get. And I think that's where the balance comes in with what you're talking about, Lance. We don't want to be putting people into holes that maybe they don't want to go into later on. So I don't mean to get on a soapbox but we need to continue to have more information like this come to us so that we as a school board of the Wausau School District know what we're doing within our schools.
I would jump into, and maybe one of the things that John talked about that I thought was really important and kind of ties some things together is the parent engagement side of things and getting families involved. As a district, we have so many great opportunities for kids, and you think about Youth Apprentice, you think about dual credit, and are we getting that into the houses? So when families go home and talk about it at home, what are the options? Do parents, are they informed with what are the options? What can kids do and get kids in the classes that they need to?
It's all great feedback, and one thing I didn't mention, I spent today up in CISA 9 talking about regional career pathways, but a good portion of that was how are you, they challenged us, how are you sharing about pathways? And it gets to, I think, our whole conversation is how are we sharing all of the pathway information and the course options that we have. So I really appreciate all the feedback. So,
do you have any summertime semi-apprenticeship, or what would be a college co-op, but for a technical, for electrical construction thing? Is there a junior and senior year in high school in the summertime? Is there anything like that?
So we have our work-based learning programs that require students to work 450 hours in the youth apprenticeship program. And that happens over the course of the summer. Most of our students earn those hours during the summer.
Okay.
So in order to be a completer in youth apprenticeship, it's hard to get 450 hours during the school year.
Yeah.
So that's really what we have in place between youth apprenticeship and co-ops or internships. We're doing a lot of the job shadows more either in an individual class or through our career centers is where kids are getting job shadows. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. One other question is, when looking at career paths and schooling, is it a big portion of the pay, or how it'll be paid for? So a lot of time when people go to college, they're like, oh, I'm going to go become this, I'm going to become a doctor, and then they have 8 years of school and they have $300,000 of debt and they don't know how to pay it. Is that a big portion of, looking at the career path, be like, hey, if you go to a tech school, you get these, you get a good paying job, you're so far ahead of someone who maybe went to college and has that immense amount of debt, and now they're, saturated with that. Is there any discussion in that, looking at the different job markets and how you can financially set yourself up?
So a couple things. We talk about that a little bit with our dual credit classes, first of all, because those kids are earning college credit in high school, so they're not paying the tuition side of things. So that's a big benefit of a dual credit class. That also happens with some of the AP and IB classes as well, not just dual credits. But I would say to our counselors, meet with our grade levels every year. 11th grade, they all get together with the counselors as well as our 12th graders, and they're working through some of the financial aid applications and starting to take a look at that. The other spot that happens in is our district requires kids to take a personal finance class.
Yeah.
And in that class, every kid has to take that class. And that's one of the things that's built into the curriculum is, setting, how do you manage this? How, have you looked forward and planned this out properly as a personal finance issue as well? So those are kind of some of the areas that we hit on that.
Yeah, I just think it's a good thing to make it a priority, because you see so many times kids burdened with student debt and they're like, well, I didn't know, or something like that, as if they know right up front, like, hey, you're going to have to pay this back and you could have been ahead. But it's probably something really good to look at. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, at this point, I'm seeking a motion to recommend to the full board the approval in alignment with Administrative Rule PI 26.04. We are seeking approval of the Wausau School District 2025-26 Education for Employment, F4 or E4E, and Academic Career Plan, ACP.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Agenda item number 6. Director of Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Romansky, who will share a presentation on proposed changes to the fee schedule.
Good evening. I'm Ryan Romansky, Director of Buildings and Grounds for the Wausau School District. I'm here tonight to discuss facility usage, maintenance costs, fees, and specifically towards the artificial turf fields and lighting. I might note, we do not currently have a fee schedule for the turf fields, but we can discuss that later on in the presentation. This is a much longer discussion, but Mr. Trapp, I'll try keeping it in the 10 minutes that I have.
I didn't say that.
But shortly after the fields were opened, the amount of requests continued to grow and grow. So that brought up two concerns, or unanswered questions. One was fee schedule and who pays the fees. The other one was, that I'm going to speak to first, is our concern about premature replacement of the fields and the cost to do that. So what I reached out to both the contractors that did the work for the Wausau School District on the multi-purpose fields and the turf fields, and got a price if we just, let's say Wausau East softball field would need to be replaced earlier than the others. What does that cost? So what this indicates is the softball fields are about $112,000 a piece. The baseball fields are $210,000. The multi-purpose fields, they have the shock pad does not have to be replaced. This is just for replacing the turf. The shock pad we can replace it. Well, we have to start looking at it after the second turf replacement is completed. But the multi-purpose at East, because it's larger, is $722,000. West is $610,000. And then I added an inflation factor of about 3%, looking down the road 5 years from now. And you can see it's $130,000, $254,000, and then $837,000 and $700,000. So those are pretty big numbers. Capital budget and operations budget will have a hard time covering those when that time comes. Some additional, the next slide, please. Some additional wear costs, just for your knowledge, just a small amount, but the pitcher's mounds, the batter's boxes, the areas in front of the goals, those areas do have to be replaced more periodic. I wasn't able to get a price on what that would be, but you try getting them to come in when they're in the area, get those replacements completed. You don't get anything for under $5,000 nowadays, so I don't know what that is, but I can get that information later. We're also doing an annual PM on the fields. We're bringing in a professional company to groom the fields, put the infill in, try getting them back to where they were when we first opened the fields. That cost is about $16,000. Our hope is that our crews can work with them, get to know how to do that. So we wouldn't have to incur that cost, but we still have to buy the infill and utilize equipment to get the fields groomed up. And of course, we have the grooming, the weekly raking, and we don't rake. Raking is monthly, but we have the grooming that has to take place. And then there are also the non-warranty repairs. Next one, please. So causes for premature wear. I talked about the weekly maintenance. That's the rule of thumb is every 40 hours of usage. If we don't know how much the fields are being used, it's kind of hard for us to keep that, to continue that grooming. And So that could be a cause. If we don't get them groomed or taken care of on a weekly basis, that can be a cause for premature wear. Improper usage of fields. We've had bikes on the fields. We've had people hitting golf balls on the fields. We've had tents set up. We've had food, incorrect footwear. Our have had vandalism where people took a steel fence post and drove it into the field. This isn't our normal user groups. This is after school, evenings, or weekends. One consideration in the next steps is to consider installing a 6-foot or 8-foot fence around the multi-purpose fields, because the baseball fields have fencing around them. This would help us restrict some of that, improper usage. Marshfield has similar fencing, so does Everest. And then the other thing is overuse of fields. Now, I'm not complaining about using the fields, that's what we have them there, but these are contributing factors. Like I just talked, community groups, weekend and evening groups using the fields. We have an increased number of people wanting to use the fields also. Maybe beyond our intent, I don't know, but I'll be discussing that shortly. And then, and again, I'm glad everybody's using them, but even deciding to practice on the artificial turf when we have 5 days of nice weather or 3 days of nice weather, to practice on the artificial turf rather than the natural turf, just is additional care. And again, I don't have an issue with that, but it is a contributing factor. So just wondering if you have any questions before I move on regarding replacement costs or?
That scenario you just mentioned, somebody practicing on the artificial versus natural, who quarterbacks, who practices where? Is that the ADs at each of the high schools?
I think that's common. I don't know for sure, but I think that's a combination between the ADs and the coaches, because they take care of.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense what you're saying, and if we could direct people to the less intrusive, less expensive field, it would seem to make sense that we'd want to do so.
But I also understand too, if they have a game on, their soccer game is on artificial turf, they probably want to practice on it. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. It's just a contributing factor.
Right.
Yep.
If the opportunities were to go on natural turf,
Correct.
and it wasn't inhibiting something, then yeah, we should.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Well, one of the questions I was going to have is how would you enforce this? And I think the fence is the answer, because if you have a school facility that doesn't have a fence around it, the implication is anybody can just walk on it and use it. And if some school organized group shows up, then you got to leave. So like if you've got an elementary, baseball field out, people just use it. And that's what's happened forever. So I think it'd be very difficult to enforce unless you had a fence around it.
Correct.
We're going to continue to have people just walk out and use it.
And our existing fences, even if we lock them around the multi-purpose, they can still, it's only a 3-foot fence, so they can jump it and utilize it, so. But that's a decision that we would have to make as a district on whether we want to restrict folks from taking a walk around the track or whatever.
Most districts that have synthetic turf have 6 to 8-foot fences all the way around so that people cannot go out on those or go walking their dog out there. I've seen that more than enough as well. And when you start creating that kind of bacteria on the fields, now you're going to have a problem with anyone getting any kind of an opening on their skin. Now you're going to get infection, and you're going to have some problems there. Activity usage is probably going to be monitored by athletic directors. And I agree with what you just said about the fact that if they're going to be playing in a game the following week and you're on synthetic turf, you want to practice on synthetic turf. But if you're going to be in a game where you're going to be on regular turf, good grass, well, you want to be practicing on good grass. So I think the monitoring has to take place along with fences. That's the only way. My 2 cents at that time. Any other questions?
Okay.
This was just for information, so keep on going.
Great, so what I put together, the fee schedule that's up there, again, this is not an actual recommendation or proposal. I just put this example together to better explain the situation. So this is off of our current policy. I did modify the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and used red text to delineate it. But Tier 1 is simple. Wausau School District funded, Wausau School District WIA sanctioned sports, or Fund 80 middle school athletics. That's pretty simple. We know who falls into that place, and there isn't a fee for that. Tier 3, that might be, shortly after they were completed, we had a semi-pro football team that wanted to practice and have games on the fields, on the multi-purpose fields, or the Brewers, somebody for profit, that our kids don't actually get the money, but it's a camp for our kids, but they actually keep most of the proceeds. That's a Tier 3. So those are pretty simple, and the fee base, I think my next slide shows some fee bases. I just threw something in there for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So they're, like I said, I just wanted to indicate that we don't have fees set in those two line items. But Tier 2 is where we have, where we're conflicted. If you could move back, please, Cassie, thank you. Highlighted in red are examples of groups that are requesting usage. Now, I'm not picking on any of these groups or pointing anybody out. I just wanted to give you a few groups that have asked for usage on them, and so you had a better feel for who I'm talking about. There's a longer list than that, but so in their eyes, they feel that they fall under the Tier 1 per the definition that I put in red text under purpose. And the purposes for the event usages for the benefit significantly majority of the Wausau School District students. And it's hard for me to argue with them on that. But whether it's youth groups or it's fundraisers or youth programs, it all comes back to the event is being held for the better of our students in the district. So that, that's been it's become increasingly difficult to manage the facility schedule. It's difficult to delineate who should pay or who shouldn't pay.
Isn't that really the purpose of Tier 2, though? Because obviously, so if you have your Wausau East baseball team is using the baseball field, well, that's Tier 1, obviously. Those are current students. And if you have a Little League team, that may benefit the Wausau East baseball team some year in the future. But they're not current students. Some of them may not even go to the Wausau School District. So that's kind of where that Tier 2 falls in. And then you have your Tier 3, which is it doesn't even have any connection to, because as an athletic program, you want to develop the young students, and that those are your future players. So that's the purpose of Tier 2 is there is a charge. It's not the same as an actual district, but it's not as expensive as Tier 3, which has no connection. It just seems like it makes sense. And this is a tier schedule we already have in place in our district for field houses, everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, but this is, and I'm talking tonight about the turf fields and the lights that we haven't set, but this is district-wide, facility-wide that we're running into issues. Athletic programs have, less money. There's more parents and booster clubs and groups that have teams and have programs that are trying to better the students so when they get older, they're not falling behind. But that is, that's kind of the dilemma we're having, is because they see it as this is for the kids. So if an example would just be they want to have a tournament to a fundraiser, and it's for X club. If we charge according to this for custodial and everything, it'll cost $500, just to throw out a number, and they only take in $800. They put in a lot of work and time for $300, and that's the feedback we're getting from.
But that's a discussion we had in the past. We have groups that do fundraisers that our district spends more money to coordinate the fundraiser than what the fundraiser makes.
Correct.
And so when you have a little small, and you say, well, I'm going to have I was going to say pancake breakfast, probably not the best example because a lot of people go to that, but when you have a breakfast and you're going to make, let's say $500, but then the district has to spend $1,000 to have different electrical put in for this, and they have to have, custodial on overtime, and you have to have an administrator there, and you have to have this, and then the district actually lost money on the fundraiser. I mean, that's just a reality. So I just don't think we can ignore the reality of that, even if it's hard news to give.
There's so many other options.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't have to use it then. So many other options.
I think specifically for our turf field investments, we have to protect those investments, and just like every other district around us has higher fences, I think we really need to look to get that for our investments.
Well, and earlier I sent some information out about what one of the steps that we wanted to take. But then I got together, when we did the consolidation, I was looking for a third-party facilitator, because this would be difficult to do, but I reached out to Jordan Sins from CISA 10 and asked him, have you ever dealt with this? Have you put a facility schedule? Have you dealt with these issues? And he just smiled at me. He said, all your roadblocks are the same thing that everybody has had. So to reconsider all this, it's a larger task than just, it's more than just the fields, because one is going to carry off the other. But what he suggested to me was, I should look for feedback or direction from the board on how do we want to move forward as a district? As far as, are we going to be community-based? Or is it going to be community-based, open the facilities for everyone, within certain components, obviously? Or are we going to just keep them for the tier one type groups? So that would, one suggestion, and like I said, I'm open to anything, would be to get ADs, coaches, maybe board members, and some of these groups that utilize the fields, to look at all these options. What are the cost ramifications? How do you gauge it? If we take a group and they're schedule the baseball fields for a game, and the high school team, the varsity team, got rained out, now they're going to get bumped because they need to use that field. So there's a priority setting and so forth, which is pretty much in place. I think our policy does say that, high school sports, take precedence. But I guess I'm just looking for some feedback, because it's been difficult. The feedback we get every time we try to implement it is becoming more and more difficult.
I think it's important to have a conversation about what community-based means, because community-based and charging are not opposites.
Sure.
When we're having a conversation about community-based in a bigger picture, we're talking about the good of all of this long term, and that means our future of those fields for our students long term, for our community long term. And if we make it free and available for every bicycle, dog, fundraiser, whatever it might be, the overusage is going to cause an issue of having to replace it sooner, increased maintenance costs, increased staffing, increased stress, all of those things, which in the end are going to impact the community negatively, because it means that their resources are not being used effectively. It means we're coming back to them for additional funding. It means the students on our teams are not able to access our resources. So I think it's important that we understand that community might mean that there is, in fact, I would argue that it does mean that there's a tiered fee schedule, because it's in the best interest of the community as a whole and the district as a whole. Those fields belong to the district. We want to support our community, but there has to be tiers. Otherwise, we're going to be coming back to the community 3 years earlier and saying, we need $722,000 to replace this because we didn't put up a fence and because you gave our staff a hard time and they told you that you had to pay $100. And I understand that that's obviously an extreme situation, but I also understand the arguments that you're getting and the dilemma that the phone calls that you're probably getting every time you say, we do have to charge. Because it is, again, in the interest of the community and the district long term. And those are the decisions we have to make.
All right, going on, because we need to keep on moving here. Ryan, you have a big job in front of you. If you have more information, basically what I'm summarizing here, you take your coaches, you bring your coaches together, you bring your ADs together, let the ADs do some work. You don't have to do all that work. You have other people that can get some of that information back to you. Get some community clubs involved, get them to understand. I think you go out and you start at the lower level, build it up to the high school, and then you bring it back to us to get what we might want to do or what we think might be the best way based on what the administrative team puts together for us.
FYI, I mean, other districts are charging.
Yeah,
Other districts have these 3 tiers. A quick Google's,
Absolutely.
Marshfield's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't think we even need to overcomplicate it.
Agree.
Just,
I think too,
this is what you want to do, come up with some fees, get it in front of us, and if we say yay or nay, I mean, we got to make your job easier, and I don't think you need to go talk to 1,000 people to do that.
It's just clear definitions. He needs clear, because he's like, no one wants to be the person to say no,
Right.
no. If you have a clear definition, he's not saying no, he says it doesn't meet the criteria. Done.
and I
You
do
have
want to
nine-
say
you have
about
8 people sitting right here that are giving you a lot of information. Just think if you bring everybody else in.
Well,
I think
but-
you just get your echelon of people and let them do their job at every level, all the way up. And I agree with Pat. This has been done at other places. It's not rocket science for
And
us.
let's give our community a little credit.
Yeah.
Because when we brought them together to talk about, for example, consolidation, and they saw the numbers and they saw the reality, they made solid data-based decisions for the long-term good of the community. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility if they understand this as well.
No, I understand and I appreciate the feedback. Things just have spiraled out of control the last few years.
Frustrated.
Well, and it was a point, and what sparked it was not having a fee schedule for our turf fields and who uses them and why that might be. So I'll take those recommendations and I can move forward with that.
Yeah, I agree with Pat. I don't think this has to be overcomplicated. There's other districts that have a fee schedule for their turf fields. Put that in place. If it doesn't work, come back to us and ask us advice on how to change it.
But I will say this, do get your athletic directors involved. The athletic directors are dealing with the fields more directly in some cases than you are, and let them get some information to you.
I don't know why that's not a core responsibility of an AD, but whatever.
You don't think that's a part of it?
No, I think it should be.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
they should be doing more along those lines.
A little site-based management here.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I just hit you again. Site-based management. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You got a tough job. Greatly appreciate that.
Board members, as Wendy makes her way up here, I think we should wait to do the special meeting till after the annual meeting because we are past.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
past.
we're behind. So
We'll take your word on that, Cassie. We'll get things sped up a little bit more.
Well-
That's all right. You're keeping us on time.
I think I can catch us up a little bit,
Oh, great.
maybe.
Great.
So I'm here tonight with the annual seclusion and restraint report, and we will be looking at information from last year. So I'm going to sum up the paragraph listed in the presentation. We are in accordance with Wisconsin Act 118 in that we have to report out our seclusion and restraint numbers every year. Seclusion and restraint may only be used when a student's behavior presents an imminent risk. So the guidelines of Act 118 are pretty extensive. We follow those guidelines here in the Wausau School District, not only in practice, but also through district level training and support for staff members and district administrators. So, looking at last year's data,
the number of students that we had involved in a seclusion restraint or seclusion and restraint was 22. I should put my glasses on and just read right here. I'm trying to go too fast. All right. So, total number of incidents of seclusion was 5. The restraint incidents were 23. Restraint and seclusion were a total of 4. So that would be a combined total of 32 incidents for last school year. The year prior to that, I believe we were at, it's in the attached report, we had 58 incidents. So we've seen a decrease in those. We'll continue to monitor those numbers as we move through the 25-26 school year. And we'll continue on offering our proactive crisis intervention training. And page 3 has the breakdown by schools.
Any questions before I put the motion down?
Yeah, and all those numbers, was a teacher ever looked upon as poorly for doing that? Okay,
No.
like teachers aren't afraid to intervene or something like that if in a situation.
I can't speak on behalf of every teacher that we have, but we do offer training to all teachers, and at the start of the year, we offer a brief review, both in our safe schools of the Wisconsin Act 118, and we also look at the foundational principles of our PROACT training, and that goes out to all staff and all new staff, understanding that we do play a role in students' behavior. However, there is a time and a place where seclusion and restraint are appropriate.
Is there any metric ever that looks at if a teacher would have intervened or something that it would have ended up better?
We do. So after 2 incidents of seclusion or restraint, the teams are required to meet. So there's a debriefing after each incident with the school team.
I'm
whether
saying if
that's
seclusion
after
and restraint
school-
didn't happen.
If it didn't happen.
Yeah, so like they look back and they're like, hey, you should have done that. To a teacher, they did the seclusion and restraint where they didn't use it and they should have. So, because it seems like people are always afraid to do that.
I think anytime we have an incident where we're looking at a clear and present imminent risk, we have to make a risk assessment in that
Yeah.
space, and we're always debriefing it whether there was a seclusion or restraint or a significant incident to make sure there weren't other interventions we could have explored.
Okay. Thank
Any other questions?
That's a significant drop. What do you think you would attribute it to?
I think part of it would be training. I think the other piece is that the law actually requires us to look back after 2 incidents of seclusion and restraint as a school and look at our planning, look at the supports we have in place for the student, and kind of take a good look at what we're planning long-term, whether that's through the IEP or that's through debriefing teams within buildings. And then I think our folks here in Wausau are really good at looking at alternative plans and then implementing them so that they aren't consistently in a state of crisis. Every student is different.
Well done. I'm seeking a motion to move and recommend to the full board the approval of the 24-25 seclusion and restraint report as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm seeking a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well, thank you. That's a meeting down. We have another one to go to.
If you plan on voting for the annual meeting, the sign-up is located over here on the credenza, and if you could please just take a moment to do that.
So if you have not signed up, do so now, but I think everybody is signed up. With that, it is 6:19, and I'm calling the special meeting to order. Approved consent agenda,
Oh, we're gonna do that. Are we doing the annual meeting?
special meeting.
Oh, okay.
This will take only a few minutes, the special meeting. No, let's continue right on order where we're at. We'll get caught up with this. As I said, we're into the special meeting, appointments, additional staff, replacement staff, contract increase, separations, resignation, contract decreases, terminations, leaves of absence, retirements. I'm seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 3, seclusion and restraint report. This has taken place. This is an overview, a presentation of 24-25 seclusion and restraint report, and a brief look at the data over time. over time. The full report is included in the attachments. I'm seeking a motion to approve of the 24-25 seclusion restraint report as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm seeking a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Like I said, that would be quick.
Oh, I should have came up with all kinds of questions.
Oh, my gosh. Just kept on moving. All right.